Hello everyone, it's Blaze. I'm back with a new game theory video. Poppy Playtime Chapter 4. They basically think they know what the villain is. Now, I don't know which one's coming out first, either this or my finally playthrough of Poppy Playtime Chapter 3, so links in the description and in the eye if it's out already, but for now, let's just see what they think of Chapter 4's main villain.
I know who the main villain is for Poppy Playtime Chapter 4.
It's Yarnaby.
No, it's not the prototype. No, it's not Poppy.
It's Yarnaby.
No, it's not this new sheep critter from the teaser. Although, while that last one may not be the big bad, it turns out this black sheep is in fact the key to figuring out who is.
We already know who the big bad is. It's Yarnaby.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory, the black sheep of the gaming world.
How is it the black sheep?
Everyone else is being cute, doing Let's Plays, we're over here chowing down on the stories of orphans shoved into plushies. But we're not alone, because we just got ourselves a brand new teaser for Poppy Playtime Chapter 4. A Dog Day plushie walks through a room until out of the shadows, a black clump pounces and begins chowing down.
I kind of realized they are way behind on this.
Toy corpses stacked high. See, Poppy and I really are a match made in heaven. Or hell, I suppose. Over the next 2 weeks, we learned a little bit more about this character. Their name is Barbar Chops, and apparently their design was inspired by the YouTuber Sheep Rampage and their fan-made smiling critter. Good for you, man. Nice to see some theorists in this community get.
I will say, there was something he posted on his community tab that, because I am subscribed to him because he is a really good theorist on this, but apparently the Baba Chops was not based on this handmade version of him. Mob Entertainment actually told him so himself in an email they sent to him. I have no clue if it's a lie or truth that Mob is saying, but either way, it's just a very coincidence.
Getting recognition. Of course, theorists across the internet began theorizing about this sheep and what they would do as the primary villain of this chapter, only for the marketing communications manager of Mob Games, Tyler, to make this comment on the Poppy Playtime Discord. Lamau, you'll really think the sheep is the main villain.
Which I'm really glad about.
Lore placement.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm thankful for having the record set straight. It's more than we get from some franchises. But did you really have to mock us with it? After this, we were shown that Barbar wasn't alone, but part of a new group of toys, the Nightmare Critters.
The Nightmare Critters.
We've got characters like Baby Baby, Icky Licky, and Tui. Oh, come on, you can't tell me they didn't know what they were doing with these names. Regardless,
Ratatouille,
this
let's
was
go.
a pretty clear sign that critters like Barbar weren't going to be the primary villains of this chapter.
They're
Then,
minor
who
antagonists.
is? Of course, we could just wait for the next teaser to find out. But you know what? I don't actually think we need to. Because even though Barbar may not be the main villain, the decision to use them in the teaser instead of any of the other new critters was intentional.
How was it?
Is incredibly important because it actually helps us figure out who the real villain is going to be.
It's going to be
so
Yarnaby.
Let's start digging through the piles of decaying toys, loyal theorists, to see if we can find the tiniest scraps of lore to chew on. For starters, how is Baba the key to figuring all this out?
Yeah, that's the main question.
For that, we've actually got to go back in time a little bit and talk about another recent development in the Poppy Playtime world, a series of videos released on Mob Entertainment's YouTube channel called The Story So Far. Each video involves Harley Sawyer.
I'm called the Doctor.
He was the guy that helped start the Bigger Bodies initiative. He is narrating us through the events of chapters 1, 2, and 3. Seems pretty straightforward. However, when the first video came out, fans were quick to notice that something wasn't quite right. At 1 minute and 28 seconds, there were hidden frames that showed the letters IV, A, R, and G, followed by the phrase, "Let the game begin." IV
Or
is
ARG.
the Roman numeral for 4, and the other letters, well, I'm sure you can figure that part
Chapter
out.
4
This was the
ARG.
start
Let's
of
go.
Chapter 4 ARG, which was very exciting. Chapter 3's ARG revealed a ton of information about the poppy gas, how they made the experiments, and the human identity of Catnap. So people began scrambling to find
Theodore?
whatever answers they could about this thing. Big shout out to everyone over on the Poppy Playtime Discord, by the way. While I have been trying to solve all these clues on my own, these guys were incredibly quick on the draw, solving puzzles just hours after release.
Exactly my point. Like, in my opinion, they are very behind on this one because we already know who the main villain is. That was figured out basically almost the same day, or not the same day. Like, I think after like the third Nightmare Critter, I want to say, we figured out who the main antagonist was. Yarnaby. We figured that out very quickly.
including Sheep Rampage, the YouTuber I mentioned earlier. So if you want to stay on top of the latest Poppy ARG stuff in the future, I highly recommend you go and check them out. There's a link in the description. Hi, Future Tom here. So I'm literally about to head out for a vacation, but I've just seen that there's potentially more to this ARG. Members of Mob's Partners in Crime program have been receiving letters with hidden clues. At the time I'm recording, there's only been a handful of clues. There's still missing
Like I said,
a couple of key
they are
components,
way
but
behind.
by the time this episode comes out, the rest may have been revealed. So definitely go and check out the Poppy Playtime Discord if you want to see where that ended up. I don't believe it's going to change much about this episode, but I just wanted to let you know so you're not wondering why I'm not talking about those codes specifically. Okay, back to the ARG. Fortunately, none of us had to wait too long for our first major clue. Right at the end of that first video, we got this wall of text. At first, it looks like our old friend Base 64. So I tried it and ended up with this.
Wow, that's a
not
failure.
Exactly what we're looking for. But did you know that there are actually more base ciphers than just 64? Base 64
really?
gets its name from containing 64 unique characters, a capitalized and non-capitalized alphabet, numbers 1 to 9, and a couple of symbols. However, there are a bunch of base forms that use a different amount of unique characters that we can try. We actually used base 5 back in our That's Not My Neighbor video, but there's also stuff like base 16, base 36, base 62, base 85, and the one that came in handy today, base 32. This one uses a single alphabet and the numbers 1 to 7. So if you see a code that looks like it should be base
That's
64,
the simplest
but it
one.
lacks any
Why is it
symbols or the
32?
numbers 8, 9, or 0, try base 32. The more you know.
Why didn't they just
by
start with
converting the
32?
code, you get this. On felted feet and with bated breath, sleep draws ever near. Felted feet seemed like it would be talking about a toy, and with the second line being about sleep, I immediately thought of Catnap, with their red smoke sending orphans to sleep. But why would we be reminded of him in the build-up to Chapter 4? Catnap was our last villain, and he's kinda suffering from a minor case of deadness. This is where I think Barbar's prominence in the teaser comes into
Finally,
play.
they bring
Sheep
it back.
have been associated with sleep for centuries. I'm sure you've all heard that if you're struggling to fall asleep, you can always try counting sheep. It's not entirely clear where this phrase originated, but some say it's from medieval shepherds in Britain who would count their sheep before turning in for the night. As time went on, the idea became more about thinking of a task that's so repetitive you'll get bored and fall asleep. So if sleep is drawing
Editing.
ever near in this new chapter, having a sheep character could make a lot of sense. Maybe they should have called her Lullabar instead.
Boo.
Oh, come on, it's no worse than Barbar Chops, and you know it. This
Icky
connection to
Licky is
counting
worse.
sheep could also imply that we need to keep track of Barbar throughout this chapter, counting them, if you will, either in order to survive or to lead us into a deep sleep. A deep sleep that's a little deeper and a little more permanent.
Yeah,
according to our next
I don't buy
plot.
that.
Hey, in the very first frame of Chapter 2 Story So Far video, we find this code. This is a hexadecimal code.
That's
and
a weird code.
translating It gives us the message 11 words, good luck. To find these
11 words.
we have to go frame by frame through the video. Sometimes there's just one jumbled up word hiding out, sometimes there's 2, but in total there are 8 codes giving us the full 11 words. Now we just need to figure out what they mean. Because these codes were made up of only letters, my gut told me it was probably a Caesar cipher, and that hunch
A Caesar
turned
cipher?
out
What's
to be
that?
correct. Kinda. It was a Caesar cipher, but not the same one for the entire code. A Caesar cipher works by shifting the frame
Really?
backwards or forwards a certain number of letters. However, each of these 8 codes has been shifted by different amounts. You can't just plug
that's
them all
interesting.
into one code breaker and call it a day. So after playing around with it for a while, you end up with this assortment of 11 words. Am not, paths, turning, of death, but I, over, afraid, and clear. Obviously, this doesn't make a lot of sense right now. We need to find the correct order. And this is where the puzzle goes from a little bit tedious to actually quite genius. If you take a closer look at the solution, the 8 codes have been shifted by a number between 1 and 8. PFSW is shifted by 1, while CVJU is shifted
That's
by 2,
interesting.
and so on. If you then place all of these words in the order of the shift values, you get the final phrase.
That's cool.
I
That's
gotta
cool.
tip my hat to you, Mob Games. At first, I thought you were just drawing out the solution to make it seem bigger, but that's a level of thought-through puzzle solving that would make a grown animatronic cry. Combining this with our previous code, we end
that's
up
funny.
with this. On felted feet and with bated breath, sleep draws ever near. Over paths turning clear, but I am not afraid of death. Unlike the sleep and nightmares that were caused by the red smoke in Chapter 3, the sleep that is coming for us in Chapter 4 is simply death. But
Ooh.
that's not actually what stood out to me. For the first time, we have got the use of a pronoun.
Ooh, I?
Up until this point,
Really?
this could have just been a cryptic poem for the sake of an ARG. But this shows us that's not the case. It's about
Yeah,
a
who is
specific
saying that?
character. Interestingly, all of the Stories So Far videos have started with a date, 2005. That's 10 years after the Hour of Joy, the event that killed all the employees in the factory, and around the same time that we came back to try and find
Was
anyone
this
who
before the
remained.
Hour of
At
Joy?
the end of chapter 3,
Or during?
Poppy told us that everyone was killed, but we know this isn't the full truth. Leith Pierre seems to still be around, able to run Project Playtime, and the writer of the Orientation
How?
Notebook, PW, is also still alive to write in the book. Now, we seem to have
Wait, how is
another
that both?
character that has survived the Hour of Joy.
Wait, seriously. How do they know that? Was it in a previous theory that I'm just forgetting? Like, how are those two still alive? I am confused. I have to go back and check the old theory, I guess, to understand how these two are still alive.
However, unlike PW and Leith, who seem to be free, I don't think this one is. And that's because of the way the poem is written. It follows an ABBA rhyming scheme. The first line rhymes with the fourth line, and the second line rhymes with the third. This evokes a feeling of claustrophobia or entrapment, because you have
How?
the BB rhyme enclosed by the two A rhymes. This is telling us that the character it's about is likely trapped. And with
that makes no
line about
sense.
felted feet and sleep drawing near, it's telling us that they are actually trapped down in the facility, being hunted by the toys.
Yeah, that
Although I
poem
will
idea
say
makes
this
no
character
sense.
doesn't seem particularly scared. Despite this sleep drawing near, they see an open path before them, and they're not afraid of death. Weirdly, this line sparked a memory from my time going to a Church of England high school. One of the
Ooh,
common passages
or
from
thing.
the Bible that we had to read out in assemblies was Psalm 23. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Just like in the ARG poem, there is a path ahead that is full of death. But the writer of the psalm, King David, isn't afraid of it. He goes on to say that the Lord's rod and staff comfort him, tying it back to the beginning of the psalm where he refers to the Lord as his shepherd. David is not afraid of death because he has something much stronger
that's
on his
actually
side,
interesting.
God. That might seem like a completely unrelated tangent, but if you think back
It
to
does
chapter
seem
3,
like it.
it was full of religious implications.
Catnap
with
is a cult
characters like
leader.
Catnap. Chapter 3 confirmed that he used to be the orphan Theodore, but when he got injured trying to help 1006 escape, the prototype took him to Playtime Co. scientists in order to save him. Catnap was the result, and so he worshipped the prototype, saying things like, "The prototype will save us, and I live to serve our angel of salvation." Religious inspiration is all over Poppy Playtime.
It definitely seems
especially
like it.
when it comes to the prototype
Chapter
and
3,
his role
definitely.
as a god or savior to these orphans. He is their god, their good shepherd, the one that has promised to save them from death. Could this mean that this poem isn't about another human employee, but the newest toy to be put front and center, Barbar? Are we dealing with another orphan turned toy turned 1006 cultist? I
don't see that.
think so.
I don't
because
see it.
Barbar isn't just any sheep. She's specifically a black sheep. These days, if you're called a black sheep, it means that you're kind of the odd one out, the outcast. You just don't quite fit in.
Me at
but
work.
originally, the phrase came from literal sheep. Black sheep were considered undesirable by shepherds because their black wool couldn't be dyed, and so it became hard to sell. So, when you got a surprise black sheep in your flock of only white sheep, it was considered a bad omen. By the 18th and 19th century, the color black even started to be associated with the devil himself,
Oh
the
my.
one who was opposing God. And so, with Barbar being a black sheep, she would likely be considered undesirable to the shepherd and opposed to the god we've been introduced to, 1006.
So
She's
is
not
Baba on
going
our
to be
side?
working with him like the other toys are. Instead, this solidifies my hunch from earlier that she is going to be helping us. She is going
Oh.
to want to take him down. On chapter 4's Steam page,
That's
it
actually-
does say we'll be
that's
meeting
actually
new characters
neat.
and allies after all. And you know what they say, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But if this poem isn't about Barbar, then who is it about? Well, you've probably figured out that we still haven't talked about chapter 3's video, and in it there is one more code to find, which really is the final piece we need. At 3 minutes and 58 seconds, you'll find the very obvious wall of binary text. However, this code doesn't seem to work when plugged into
How
a
so?
normal binary decoder. There is a second binary code a few frames later that does work, but it only gives us the phrase 25x25.
What?
This is where I've got to give another
Exactly my
shout out to
point.
the Poppy Playtime Discord. I was scratching my head for a good while with this one, but in less than 2 hours,
Jesus.
they had figured out that this original code was actually an image converted into binary.
How
And
did they figure that out?
25 was an aspect ratio that you needed to use to get the final image. Once again, mob games just
How do they
killing
figure
it
that
with these
out?
puzzles. The earliest person I could find suggesting this solution was a user called Clecchino, so massive props to figuring this out, and thank you for helping me with this one. By
Congrats.
converting the binary back into an image and setting the aspect ratio to 25 by 25, we end up with a familiar sight, a QR code. Scanning the code gives you a string of letters.
That's a QR
and
code?
reverse gives you the final phrase. For we have
That does
all
not look like a
met.
QR code
That
whatsoever.
final line is fascinating. On its own, it's telling us that this character the poem is about is literally someone we've already met. A new account on the
Poppy?
Poppy Playtime
Kissy?
Discord called Playtime Co. seemed to confirm this idea when users asked them if they were the ones sending the messages, and they
Ollie?
responded with the same line, for we have already met. These tapes came out before the teaser, so it can't be Barbar or any of the nightmare critters, and most of the other toys we know are dead, so it would need to be one of the human characters we've been introduced
Ollie.
to. We've got a lot of characters unaccounted for, like Eddie Ritterman, Johnny Roth, and Stella Graber, although only one of them speaks about overcoming death in similar poetic language, and we hear them during the intro of Project Playtime Season 2.
Mortality is the curse of the weak.
Is that first one that he mentioned?
I strive to snuff that flame, call me a monster, but I am simply a man who escaped from incineration and embraced the infinite.
Ding ding ding! We have a
Ooh,
match.
that's cool.
It's the same character that has been guiding us through the story so far videos this entire time. Harley Sawyer. It feels so obvious now.
duh,
The
that's
guy
so
speaking
obvious.
to us in the tapes is also the one the poem is referring to.
Oh,
The
that
one
makes so much
character who
sense.
speaks in well-structured, very poetic sentences, and whose only desire is to overcome his own mortality. And now, according to this poem, it seems like he did just that. When you take the final phrase and put it with the rest, it reads like this: on felted feet and with bated breath, sleep draws ever near. Over paths turning clear, but I am not afraid of death, for we have already
So
met.
Harley
We
Sawyer is
have
the main
already met
antagonist?
isn't just about us having met this person. It's about the person, Harley, meeting death, but still being around to talk about it. He isn't afraid of death because he overcame it. And there's only one way that happens in this franchise.
He became a toy.
You have to be turned into a toy. During Catnap's VHS tape in Chapter 3, we hear Leith Pierre leading the session instead of Harley, because in his own words,
Normally, I'd have Dr.
That
Sawyer
makes so
do
much
this,
sense.
but he's, out, let's say. So you got me until they find
That makes so much sense because in both this one and in the little papers with the Quinn or Yarnaby, we see that apparently Harley Sawyer disappeared, and and Yarnaby basically shut down and became a empty shell of itself. So that makes sense why he's no longer around. He became a toy. That is a great theory I never thought about. Oh my gosh, that's actually so smart.
his replacement.
the way Leith says Harley is out feels incredibly uncertain. He's clearly not able to perform his duties anymore, hence the need for a replacement, but it's not as definitive as saying he was fired or no longer with us. And these Stories So Far videos prove that he definitely isn't dead. Right at the end of the Chapter 3 video, the camera pulls back to reveal a bunch of security camera feeds. As we pull back, Harley's narration audio changes slightly. It's no longer on the VHS tape, it's being spoken from within the security room. This is not a pre-recorded message. He's been down here physically, watching us throughout our journey, which makes Leith's use of the word out feel even more odd. It's almost as if Leith doesn't really know what to call Harley anymore, because Harley isn't who he once was.
That
Harley
is crazy
has done
cool.
what he set out to do in his incineration monologue. He overcame death and became a living toy. This is what the Bigger Bodies initiative was always for. He initially framed it as a way to save the company, but in reality, it was to further his own twisted goals of living forever. And unlike the writer of Psalm 23, Harley didn't wait for a god to help him. He used science and became a god himself.
That is
He
crazy
now
cool.
has power over life and death. He has been helping others to beat death. He has almost become a Jesus-like character. Harley sees himself as a god, a savior, a shepherd. He is is here to lead the flock to
That is a really crazy cool
That
theory.
grace, however, doesn't seem to apply to us. He ends the video by saying we are being led like lambs to the slaughter, and then he laughs maniacally. Again, it's more shepherd imagery, but it's not the response of a good shepherd that's going to take care of us, it's a threat. The response of a power-hungry madman that's going to lead us to the slaughterhouse. Which leads me to believe that Harley, or the toy he has become, is going to be the real villain of chapter
That
4.
I like.
He's
I
never
like
been
that.
afraid of killing people that he sees as a problem. He created Boxy Boo and taught him to desire human flesh in order to get rid of people like Rowan Stoll, who were going to expose the entire operation. If we survive this trip to the factory, we would likely be doing the same thing. All of the quote-unquote good things he did would be undone, and he can't have that. But you know what? I'm gonna do you one better. It's all well and good knowing the human identity of our upcoming villain, but let's be honest, the thing we all really care about is what toy Harley is going to
Yeah, that's
appear
true.
as. At the time of recording, a trailer hasn't been released revealing this new toy. However, I think I've already figured out what
It's not
going to
Yarnaby.
be.
It's not.
It's all thanks to a little thing called trademark.
It's not
Trademark
Yarnaby.
basically shows a person's or business's
This part is
ownership
wrong.
over
This
a
part is
word,
completely wrong.
phrase, logo, character, that sort of thing. People file for trademarks so that other businesses can't then use those recognizable ideas to help sell their own products. Mob Entertainment has a bunch of trademarks, mainly for the names of their characters across video games, merchandise, and of course, stuffed toys. For example, all the Nightmare Critters had their names trademarked back in September. However, when you look at Mob's trademark list, there are two names that haven't been used.
It's not
both of
Yarnaby.
which
It's
were
not him.
registered in May.
But what's the other one? I
long
forget.
Before the Nightmare Critters. For them to have been registered so long ago but remain unused, they have to be key characters to this upcoming chapter. Each chapter has introduced us to multiple monsters after all. In chapter 3, alongside Catnap, we got Mr. Light. In chapter 2, we had Bunzo and PJ Pugapilla alongside Mummy. So with there being two unused names, it's more than likely that's what we're seeing here. One of these guys is going to be the scary but secondary villain, while the other one takes the role of our big bad and Harley's new toy body. The question is, which one? Well, the names are as follows: Yarnaby and
Nope.
Doughy the Dough Man. No,
Oh
I'm
my
not joking.
gosh.
That
I
is
forgot
the
that's what his
real
name.
trademark. Yarnaby is most likely going to be made of yarn. Would be a bit weird to call him that if he wasn't, right? But yarn could be an interesting choice for Harley's new body.
It's not
mainly
Yarnaby.
for
It's
thematic
not.
reasons. He has been pulling the strings of Playtime Co. since his introduction, starting the whole Bigger Bodies
Yarnaby
initiative
has
under
been
Force
confirmed
Freedom.
who he is.
That being said, Doughy the Dough Man, as silly as that name seems, also makes a surprising amount of sense when it comes to the theme. At first, I thought this was going to be a Pillsbury type character.
Definitely
Nothing's
seems
more
like it.
frightening than the Pillsbury Swole Boy.
Oh
But
my.
food feels like a strange choice for a toy, unless, of course, you're talking about the non-edible kind.
Play-Doh.
Play-Doh. Play-Doh is so versatile, you can make anything with it. You can mold and shape things as you see fit. You can combine different pieces together or tear them apart. Whatever perfect vision you have, Play-Doh can help bring it to life.
Oh,
It
that's actually
fits so
smart.
perfectly with Harley. He was playing God, molding and shaping the world to his vision, combining humans and toys together to create his perfect reality. Play-Doh would also give mob games a chance to try a different kind of material to show off their animation skills. Something that's detachable, malleable. Harley could literally take whatever form he wanted at any given time, making him an even more frightening.
Ooh, I am
powerful
excited for
god.
this chapter so
personally,
much.
My money's on Doughy, but who do you think it is? I'm actually kind of interested to have you guys vote on this. So, on screen right now, you'll find two videos. If you're voting for Team Yarnaby, click the video on the left. If you're on Team Doughy, click the video on the right.
Okay, I'm going to click both of them, but it's obviously probably Doughy because we know who Yarnaby is. So I'm going to click Doughy first. Is that it? Oh, there's something.
Oh, you've all heard.
Okay, looks like that really is it. Because, yeah, 30-second of nothing is pretty dumb. But still, the fact that Harley Sawyer might actually be the main antagonist is actually smart. I did not think of that. Like, I figured he was dead. I straight up figured he was dead long ago during the Hour of Joy. So, hearing that he might be the main antagonist and becoming a toy himself, that is oh smart, and I cannot wait to see this chapter. Like I said, Yarnaby, we know who he is, so definitely out. So Doughy, despite how stupid the name sounds. I sort of see it, like straight up. But still, I doubt anything's going to be for Yarnaby because by the time this made it, like I keep saying, it's confirmed who Yarnaby is. So Team Yarnaby is going to have nothing on it. Only the people who are curious what's on that video, like I was with Doughy, and it was nothing. But still, thank you all for watching this little theory, because I'm honestly excited, and the fact that Baba might be helping us now makes me wonder who else might be helping us. So, but still, thank you all for watching this, and I'll see you whenever I post next. Bye, guys.